Hello everyone, my name is Radio Mike, this is The Inside of My Mind, and I wanted to do a movie review today of a movie that I watched recently, which is The Invisible Man, a brand new movie that is like a loose adaptation of the old science fiction book turned film franchise, The Invisible Man, which was like the original movies of this were like in the 30s. I haven't seen them, but it is based on the book by H.G. Wells, which I do have, and I have read. This is a H.G. Wells double book with The Time Machine and The Invisible Man, and of those two books, I definitely would say that The Invisible Man is the better one. However, I can't say the same for this movie, which I was surprised to see got generally pretty good reviews from critics all round, but I've got to say that this, to me, was a really bad movie. Like, I didn't particularly enjoy any part of this movie. And there are a lot of like loose ends and plot points that were either just like nonsensical or just stupid in the first place. So the loose premise of the film, which is quite different to the book admittedly, is that this woman is in a supposedly an abusive relationship with a very controlling man who happens to work in optics, and she makes an escape in the middle of the night while he's asleep. And after she escapes a few weeks later, this guy that she was dating apparently commits suicide, and suddenly she begins to be haunted by this invisible figure. She claims that this guy has figured out a way to become invisible, but everyone kind of just thinks she's a psycho and she hasn't recovered properly, but they're trying to help her recover in the meantime. But then the Invisible Man begins to actually start killing this woman's family and friends, which starts to cause a lot of trouble. She ends up going to jail. A bunch of shit happens. I won't spoil the ending yet, but there will be spoilers in this review. The first thing I want to say about this movie is that the first hour of this 2-hour movie was pretty much redundant. For this reason alone. The film is called The Invisible Man, but the first hour of this movie is sort of like, well, I guess it's just frustrating for a viewer. It's frustrating for you watching the movie because one of the main parts about this movie is that the main character is trying to convince her family and friends that her ex-partner has not in fact committed suicide and is still alive and is haunting her with this power of invisibility, which everyone thinks is an absolute joke. Now, we, the viewers, know for a fact that she's right. We know that there is an invisible man. Merely because the film is called The Invisible Man, we know she's not crazy. We know that she is right. So it actually isn't, there's no suspense, there's no mystery, there's no mystique to this film. And it just becomes frustrating that all the other characters don't believe her and think she's crazy because we all of us watching know for a fact that there is an invisible man. And that just makes the entire first hour at least totally redundant, where she's figuring out, like, you know, there's these little things happening around the house. Oh, the tap's turned on. How'd that happen? Oh, things are moving around the room. How did that happen? She starts to deduce that there's an invisible man, but there's, even with her figuring it out for that first hour, there is absolutely no suspense in it. We know. We already know that. So I feel like for them to not have this issue, they should have done it as a thing, as a movie where you're getting her in the present time being haunted by the invisible man, and it flashes back 2 times where they were in the relationship together, showing his abusive ways. Instead of having half of the movie is her figuring out there's an invisible man, because we already know that. It was just frustrating to watch this movie. I just felt frustrated the whole time because everyone's like, you're crazy, there's no invisible man. Take your medication. Stuff like that, where I was just so frustrated. I can't express that enough. And the frustration just turns into boredom and general disdain with the film. There are some really good scenes in this movie where it shows how frightening an invisible person could be, and the power, the superpower of invisibility, which has been done in a fair few movies and TV shows and is always kind of seen as like a weaker sort of superpower. You know, it is shown as quite terrifying what can be achieved. if you were invisible. And you are really scared of this guy who you can't see, but there's only a few of those sort of battle scenes or those fight scenes with the Invisible Man. The rest of the movie is just incredibly frustrating. It is a massive shock and a turning point in the film that I liked when the Invisible Man actually kills the main character's sister. Spoiler alert, but overall there weren't that many just really good moments. There's also just a few things I didn't quite understand about the movie. So when the main character initially escapes from the abusive ex-boyfriend's house, she goes to live with this police officer and his teenage daughter. It never really explains how they know each other and why she's living with this police officer and his teenage daughter and sleeping in the bed with the teenage daughter. I just found the whole thing really weird. Like, who are these people? How are they related? Why are they friends? I don't know. I just would have preferred more context in that way. The other thing I didn't like was sometimes I felt like there was a lot of false jeopardy in the film. For example, toward the end of the movie, when the main character is locked up in a mental asylum, the Invisible Man comes into her room and says, "I'm going to kill the teenage girl and you're going to get the blame for it." And that was his main threat. Like, everyone's going to think it was you. You're going to get the blame for it. And then he leaves and goes to the teenage girl's house to go and kill her. And the main character follows him to the house, which I did find quite weird, because if she stayed at the mental asylum and he went to kill the girl, there would be no way he could frame her for it, which seemed to be his motivation for doing it. Like, if she's here and he's here, there is evidence that she's there, and he goes to kill the girl, how could he possibly frame her? Like, it actually doesn't make any sense. I don't think that it's, like, there was no jeopardy in that. She could have just not gone, and then he wouldn't have had a motivation to go kill the girl, because she wouldn't have been able to be framed. Therefore, he wouldn't have killed her. Like, I just didn't feel like there was any real threat to it at all, and it didn't make sense that she would follow him, because her following him to the house only enabled him to attack the girl. I just thought it was so weird. I guess it seemed like for some of the film, the filmmakers maybe wanted you to think or believe that maybe there wasn't an Invisible Man and maybe she was just insane, which I will admit would have been a really good twist. And for parts of the film, I was genuinely thinking, oh, is it just that there's an Invisible Man? And towards the middle of the film, that thought kind of started coming into my head. Like, is she crazy, or is there actually an Invisible Man? But then again, there was already evidence before that there was an Invisible Man. So that you never lingered on that idea for too long. Like, you never really believed that she was just insane. Like, and that's the main issue with this movie. You know there's an Invisible Man, but most of the movie is the characters trying to decide or trying to distinguish whether or not there is an Invisible Man. But the viewer already knows there is. So there's no mystery, no suspense. Like, I don't know, it really misses the mark to me in that way. I don't know why, but I just didn't really enjoy anything around it. There's lots of Paranormal Activity vibes in this, with the Invisible Man going around doing stuff to them while they sleep. I think they must have been inspired by Paranormal Activity in those kind of ways. Lots of, like, really low budget scenes. Like, you know, you can get away with doing a lot really easily because I guess invisibility is a power that doesn't require intense special effects. I will say that I really did like the way he turned invisible, which is how he created a suit that was like, it looked like it was covered in cameras that were able to like manipulate light or something like that, and that's how he was doing it. I thought that was really, really cool. The movie is incredibly different to the book. The book is quite a short book as well, so it makes sense. The Invisible Man in the book, however, does have the same name as the Invisible Man in the film, which I thought was a nice little nod. But overall, it's more or less a completely original story. The weird thing about this movie is the way it ends, though. There is I guess not a twist ending, but something happens at the end that I thought was totally unexpected, but not like a good kind of unexpected. Like the unexpected where you just sort of like, what the fuck just happened? And I don't know, I came out of this movie feeling really uninspired, disinterested, and to be honest, just sort of glad it was over. I know a lot of people liked this movie, and I'd be interested to know why, because I just couldn't get over all these gaping plot holes and just general shitness of this movie overall. I don't know. What I will say is I think it does paint a really good quote-unquote picture of how bad some abusive relationships can get. Like, this woman is literally living in so much fear to the point where it's pretty much driving her insane, and she's so afraid of this guy coming to find her, which really speaks volume about like domestic violence and things that do happen in homes. And I thought that representation and that portrayal was quite insightful to show how afraid some people can actually be. But yeah, overall, I didn't particularly like this movie. However, I would love to know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Check out some of my other videos. I do movie reviews, game reviews, music reviews, and all kinds of things. I also have a podcast, 20th Century Boy. It's just about my life. I work in radio. I do all kinds of stuff. I don't know. Just check it out. Listen to it. It's kind of funny. Follow me on Instagram, radio.mike, or Twitter, it's Radio Mike. I also have a band, Release the Sounds. I'm wearing one of our shirts right now. We do comedy punk music. It'd be great for you to give us a listen on Spotify. That's all for now. Let me know what you thought of The Invisible Man. Let me know if you'd like to hear another review. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. Subscribe to my channel. I'd love that a lot. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye-bye.
You were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time. You were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time. I think back to the meal we ate. I really should have noticed then. You were spilling food